You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back to the program. I'm joined now by Jesse Gibson. He's the Democratic nominee for Arkansas Attorney General. Good to see you.
Thank you, Roby.
Thank you for being here. First of all, I need to clear up something. You're the two-time Hope Watermelon Festival watermelon eating champion, but there have been some allegations of doping going on. Have you been taking performance-enhancing drugs?
I am 100% clean and natural, and my superpower is loving watermelon, loving Arkansas watermelon more than anything. So I am the two-time defending champion of the Hope Watermelon Contest. I've got a plaque and a trophy to prove it. So my folks are very proud.
I'm just surprised you didn't bring it with you and put it on the desk right there. Top agenda item for you. If you're elected Attorney General, what is going to be the number one thing that you're going to pursue?
Number one thing is to return that office to being one of the best law firms in the state. Over the course of the last 8 years, we've seen a overly politicization of that office. And what I want to do is to return it back to being one of the best, most high-performing law firms in the state. How do you do that? Number one, I am going to stop using any kind of monies received from lawsuits or settlements to run any kind of political ads that may benefit me personally or politically. I've even proposed on the campaign trail putting a complete moratorium on those ads, except in the case of a declared emergency for 60 or 90 or 120 days before primary and general elections, just so there's no appearance of impropriety. I think earning back the trust of Arkansans is really important, because the Attorney General's office touches so many lives in so many different ways that without that trust, you're going to struggle.
Tell me 2 or 3 things you do different than the current holder of that office.
Well, first of all, I would say that running those ads and using taxpayer funds to do it, that's one of the things that I really have vowed on the campaign trail not to do. Second would be challenging election results in other states. I don't think there's any need, and when I go on the campaign trail, I hear that so often that that may have been the last straw for many Republicans, for many out there who may identify with current Attorney General's party, but that was a bridge too far for them. They couldn't accept utilizing our state resources to challenge outcomes of elections in Pennsylvania or in Florida or wherever that she sought to overturn elections. That's something that I won't do. I don't think that's a proper use of taxpayer funds, and I'll always be a good steward of the people's money.
You have recently posted on your Twitter account, "Don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to my opponent." Who's comparing you to the Almighty? But more importantly, what do you mean by that?
Sure. I think that one of the important things in this race is not, why do you want to be Attorney General, but do you really want to be Attorney General? And do you have the requisite experience in Arkansas courtrooms to be that chief law enforcement officer, to be the state's attorney? And my opponent, you can go on Court Connect, you can do the research, it's on my website, has never had a case or tried a case in an Arkansas courtroom.
He's a former U.S. attorney. Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin, who we're talking about.
Correct. More than a decade and a half ago. In that time, I've tried over 100 cases to jury verdict. My case, this is all public record. So you can go and look online at our track records of how we've practiced in Arkansas courts representing Arkansans. And he has a dearth of experience and has handled no cases in Arkansas courts. That's a decision that the voters need to ponder. That's something that the voters need to look at and say, who's got the best experience? Who's got the most experience? And I really do have to ask the question, do you really want to be Attorney General? It's my opponent. He wanted to run for governor until he came to a conclusion that may not happen. We need someone in this post who's committed to justice, that their track record over the last 10, 15, 20 years proves that, and I don't think he has it. I do.
If you were to win Attorney General, would you seek higher office?
Hard to say. I mean, you'll have to make decisions at some point because of term limits. Have not thought about that far. I've been a little busy. But if I get to make that determination in the future, hopefully I'll do it with prayerful reflection and hopefully serve Arkansans in some fashion.
Crime is an issue that is front and center on everyone's minds, no matter where you live in the state of Arkansas and even outside of the state of Arkansas. What do you think is the root cause of the increase in violent crime and the crimes that we're seeing?
It's multifaceted. I think it's some measure of hopelessness in some communities that you can even trace back to poverty or joblessness, and people just don't have an outlet or hope of a better future. That's what I think has been so important in this campaign, is to try to give people and I know a lot of Democratic candidates are doing that, is trying to give Arkansans a better vision, a better way for the future, better jobs, better legal system, fairer justice. But to pin it down to one thing is really tough. I do think that it's something that it affects us in many different ways. What I've suggested is to be tough on crime but smart. To stand shoulder to shoulder with law enforcement, but also work on our horrible recidivism problem. That's something that continues that cycle of crime and violence, because you can look around states in the Southeast. We stand far apart from any of our neighbors with our reoffender rate. The Department of Corrections has begged for real solutions. I want to lead the charge on that so we can cut down on violent crime in Arkansas.
Do we need to build another prison?
Yes.
All right. What about the parole situation? We are letting prisoners out on a regular basis under the emergency powers there. A governor has to I guess declare that, and then it has to go through the parole board in terms of who gets let loose. But the Attorney General could be someone that is challenging that. What would be your position on parole?
So one of the issues about, I am for jail expansion because it's just necessary right now. We have sheriffs, we have folks all around the state telling our legislature, telling our leaders, we need this. But it is a short-term solution. So, and I always say, if you're not going to have supply-side answers or issues, all you're going to have is demand-side solutions, right? Which is more beds. So anyway, that's what I think we have to do is expand the jails now, but work on those things that really cut down on the amount of people in the prison system. Cut down our recidivism rates. Now, the issue of parole, I get this a lot on the campaign trail, and this is another differentiation between myself and my opponent. The parole board's appointed by the executive branch, which my opponent has been ostensibly second in command or second in line in that branch. And all of the parole board is appointed by the executive and approved and confirmed by the Senate. To complain about any kind of issue with the parole board and his position is an amazing self-own. He has been at the very lead of that issue, and he's done nothing. He's been missing on that issue like he's been missing on every other issue in this campaign.
What is going to be your position on recreational marijuana? There is money in there for law enforcement, but there are also some law enforcement officers who think this is a bad idea, and there is some mixed reviews on that. What's your personal position on it?
Sure. You know, with the caveat that the Attorney General has to enforce laws that are on the books, right? You don't always get to pick and choose which ones you enforce. But, you know, as a matter of policy, it's the way the country's going. And it's the way that the country is heading. And I think the good outweighs the bad. Number one, on the state coffers. There's a report today, perhaps $500 million in tax money if recreational marijuana is passed. That's obviously a big benefit to our state. But the thing that no one really talks about is the help that it will give to law enforcement. And I think this is an issue we really need to talk about. If law enforcement no longer has to take action against nonviolent drug offenses, it frees people and resources up to go after those violent crimes, so to go after those violent criminals. So I look at it as a matter of economics and a matter of opening up resources to really take on violent crime.
So you're a yes vote?
I'm a yes vote.
All right, okay. Last question for you before we wrap up here. The issue of abortion has obviously been a huge issue for almost the last 6 months here, Arkansas and nationwide. Do we need to add more exemptions to the state's very strict abortion law? And as Attorney General, do you feel like your role would be on that? Because you got to defend whatever the legislature does.
Correct. So when we're on the campaign trail, it doesn't matter if we're in Searcy, if we're in Bentonville, Texarkana, or the Delta. Our trigger law is front of mind to voters all across the state, and they're mad. They do not like our trigger law that's that's now become law in Arkansas, with no rape exception, no incest exception, and really this painful issue about the health of the mother instead of or the life of the mother as opposed to just the health of the mother. And we've heard reports about women who've been put in impossible circumstances. I think it does need to be changed. It needs to be revisited. And it's something that, again, our leaders in Arkansas have been missing on this issue, including my opponent. This trigger law sailed through the Senate that he presides over so fast it left a vapor trail. No one said anything until now they realize there's bad politics that may affect them. When the policy was before them, they chose to do nothing.
All right, he's Jesse Gibson. He is the Democratic nominee for Arkansas Attorney General. We have invited Republican nominee Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin to be on, and we'll be scheduling that very soon. Jesse, thank you so much.
Thank you, Roby. Thanks so much.
We're back with more right after this.